I'll collect them. Your worship at 6:30. All right, let's call to order the regular council meeting here on Monday, November 21st, 6:30 p.m. at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex in our council chambers, which has been, I guess you could say, reconfigured as we prepare for municipal reform. And this is just a test setup to see, as we will be adding 3 new seats to this council in the very near future. We're also streaming through Zoom and Facebook. If anyone has any questions about anything on this evening's agenda, feel free to send them to pnopper@townofstandrews.ca. Recording of attendance. I note that all members of council are in attendance with exception of Councillor Gumashell. He may be coming shortly, but he is just out of town on some business today. And before we actually approve the agenda, I do want to recognize that we're in the unceded traditional territory of the Beskotuamagati people. I'll be looking for a mover to approve the agenda as circulated for this evening. I've got Councillor Heenan, second by Councillor Hurdle. Any discussion on any changes to the agenda or anything you see? No, then all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That's everybody. The agenda has been approved. Disclosure of conflict of interest, any this evening? Okay, myself, I will be calling one to be consistent on when it comes to Compass Housing. So at that point, Deputy Mayor, I'll ask you to chair as you have done for the previous few months, I should say at this time. Anyone else for conflict of interest? Otherwise, I'll move on. Nope. Okay. So presentations, we don't have one under this, but we do have one when we get further into motions. I think the CAO will be taking us through one for the finance and administration motion. So approval of the minutes previous meetings and the communications we did at our regular meeting, as we did the staff report. So we are in the introduction, consideration, passing of bylaws and motions, and I'll pass it over at this time to Deputy Mayor Akaji.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My one and only is FA 221115, and it's the bylaw number 22-06. A bylaw relating to the Town of St. Andrews Council remuneration. Thank you. So the background goes like this. As part of the local governance reform, most municipalities have updated their council remuneration. I don't know, I'm having trouble with that word. Remuneration. Well, okay, whatever. To reflect the increased responsibility and commitment. A new formula for updating compensations for councillors was put out by the Association of Francophone Municipalities of New Brunswick. The Association of Francophone Municipalities of New Brunswick, for discussion that many new councils have adopted. Based on the formula calculations, it is recommended that the council remuneration bylaw be updated to reflect the important role served by mayor and council. Please see the attached reports for background information on the formula and process used. So the motion is this, that council grants leave for the first reading of this bylaw number 22-06 a bylaw relating to the town of St. Andrews Council remuneration. And I so move this, your worship.
Perfect. So we got a seconder, then we'll pass it over to staff just to give an update, just get on the floor. Councillor Heenan has seconded that. So you might have comments or thoughts on it, but I know Mr. Spear has put together basically some information that staff has in regards to this one. Just because of all the changes that are happening around municipal reform in the province. This is one that you don't expect to normally see in the middle of a term, but he'll give us a little bit of insight to why it's been brought forward. So the floor is yours, Mr. Spear.
Thank you, Worship. Just want to wait for the clerk to pop up the presentation. So council, what really brought this up was that through local government reform, many of the municipalities, more specifically the technical committees, I guess, with the facilitators have been looking at the compensation of many of the entities this past spring and fall. And we saw a list of what I guess the final compensation is going to be in the that came before us a few weeks ago. And so I think it's important that staff bring it forward for at least your consideration with new councillors coming, and we can be able to discuss exactly what's before you. So why is adequate compensation important? Well, for one thing, working for council is not a volunteer, is a normal volunteer position. I think talking to all the members here and those in other communities is a lot of stress and many more hours than you'd put into most service clubs, unless you're president or coach of something that's high. But overall, there's a lot of work here. It's also important that we're looking for people that have vision, that have understanding, that we want to attract really good people to be serving. And we'll talk a little bit more later why, but it's a position that's becoming more and more important with much more responsibilities, even for small communities by population like St. Andrews. It's high stress, many hours positions, as we talked about. I think most of us will say for whether it's staff or council, that when you're walking down the street, you're probably running into people all the time that are asking about issues. If you're probably getting emails every day, sometime all hours of the night, and then you probably get calls. Some things you can do about, other things is way beyond your capability or even the towns to do something about. But because local governments is the easiest government to deal with, we get a lot of the questions first to get direction of going there. So really, yourselves and your families have to sacrifice a lot while you're on a term, just because your time doesn't become your time anymore. And to a certain extent, higher pay will be more inclusive. What I mean by that is those that might be working in a pay band that's less than $20 an hour, say that if they are working multiple jobs or something, or on a service industry that you're working shift work at nights and stuff, in order to be compensated so they aren't giving up their living, they should have some type of financial compensation, at least will adequately make up for the time that they're losing at their other jobs. And so, over the years, most of the counselors have either been retirees or people in senior management positions or something that are able, to take time and more flexible, which people may not have that opportunity in other areas of employment. So the next question is, why now? Well, we've had a formal review by all the facilitators under local government reform, and now and right across the province, everybody, just about everybody has had a look at compensation, and it is changing based on the things we've talked about before. Even now, in the past elections, and even with this upcoming election, there's still a lot of acclamations being made, which isn't really healthy for democracy. And so, while most people aren't putting their hand up for compensation, certainly it'll help. And there's various reports that'll show that, if you induce a little bit, I mean, the proposals that we'll see in a few minutes aren't high levels of pay, but it's just to provide more of a stipend for the sacrifices that you'll be making in what you're doing here. One thing that's important is the complexity of planning and operating a municipality has changed over the decades. Even in my time with the town has changed. So you think about everything related to climate change. Now we've gotten into medical services and trying to recruit doctors, housing, something that we wouldn't have touched a few years ago. And I have employee recruitment. That's not even recruitment within the town. That's recruitment for the town. That, you know, a combination of housing and what can we do to bring people in and economic development. And so there's a lot of things before you right now in order to make your community thrive that, you know, back in the 80s and 90s that most councils didn't even have to think about. And it's always good to have a review, and there hasn't been a wholehearted review of the compensation in probably 10 years. A few years ago, they raised it because of a tax change that the federal government had made, but it was just to compensate for that. There was no comparison to what other communities were making. Something that should be noted too, that because St. Andrews is in with 6 other communities in a situation where we're just having by-elections, not a whole election, the technical committee and the facilitators didn't come up with an amount for council compensation. They threw it back at all of us. And so it was requested at a meeting that we go back to them and say, what do you think is appropriate? But they wouldn't, you know, they didn't say it was at their place at this point that the council that's here's existed. So it's, you know, you can make the decisions what you think is best for your community moving forward. So before you is just some of the communities, and there's I think 59 entities. I just picked some that are kind of similar in size. So right now, the current compensation, the mayor of St. Andrews makes about 13,500. The deputy mayor makes about 8,900, and then councillors about 7,500. So Eastern Charlotte, which is St. George and Blacks Harbor and surrounding area, their mayor is going up to $33,000 a year. The deputy mayor to 22,000, and councillors will be making 13,200. And they even have a higher rate for councillors at large over there. It's an extra couple of $3,000. Our neighbors in St. Stephen, their mayor will be making $37,000, the deputy mayor 22,000, and the councillor 17. Shediac, which is a bit bigger, but a similar community that we compare ourselves to frequently because the types of services they offer and kind of their, you know, that tourism and then have a wharf and things. Well, their mayor's going up to 62,000, the deputy mayor up to 24th, pretty near 25,000, and councillors at 21,800. So that's significant pay there. As another comparison I use is Fundy St. Martin's, which is a relatively small area, you know, near the trail and stuff, relatively small composition, and St. Martin's is a small village, high tourism, but it's not a lot of services just because of the size of them. Well, their mayor's making $30,000, the deputy mayor 18, and the councillors are making 13,500. And another community kind of similar to us is Shippagan, which is the mayor's making 38,000, the deputy mayor 16, and a councillor 14. So how to calculate it? The province doesn't have any formal mechanism in place. It might be the easiest thing if they just said, here's a guide, make it work in your community and go for it, then it would be even all around. But historically, it's not the way it's been. Councils could choose based on whatever they want, to be perfectly honest. But within St. Andrews, we would look at, compare ourselves to similar municipalities, the number of services, and then we'd look at the number of meetings and everything like that. And so it's really just kind of whoever took the jump first in another municipality to raise it, everybody else might kind of follow suit or whatever. And so there's been nothing really there. But during this past spring or summer, the AFNB, which is the Association de Francophonie de Nova Brunswick, published a guide called the Elected Officials Compensation Guide. It uses 5 criteria to determine ranges for each of the positions. It's population, so services provided by the municipality to the public, the number of institutions, infrastructures, and other government services on our territory, so schools and hospitals, the biological station, things like that, with their thoughts that, you know, there's a higher level of complexity that needs when we've got these types of services and providing to these institutions. There's average tax base per resident, and then the size of the territory, you know, just the gross area of it. And looking at many of the other municipalities, I ascertained it looks like most of them use that format. Then we kind of throw in their numbers, that's where it ends up. So really quickly, and this guide is public knowledge if anyone wants to get a copy, that we can provide it to them, but just really quick, based on the scales, our population would have a score of 3, number of services is a 4. That's not the number of services we have, it's just based on a range of services. And I think I count 11 in my first thing in the council package of services that we'd offered. The number of institutions is 3. The average tax base per resident is 3. We're like one of the highest, and I think it was $203,000 is what I had for that. It was one of the highest in the province. And then size of territory, they only had 0 for everything under 100 square kilometers and 1 for everything over 100 square kilometers. So the town of St. Andrews had 0. So based on this guide, and these recommended ranges are from the guide, just to be precise, they determine that the mayor should be making between 34,400 to 42,650, the deputy mayor between 14,800 to 20,500, then councillors between 13,000 and 18,300. So before you prepare a bylaw based on the minimums that we put the mayor or recommending or suggesting or putting it out there, whatever you want to say, that the mayor can be making 34,400, the deputy mayor at 14,700, council at 13,100. Based on the number of councillors we're going to have next year, the total budget would be about $154,000, but that has actually been worked into the budget that's being submitted to GNB. So with that aside, I just did a little table showing where we sit, and we're still at the low end compared to a lot of other municipalities. And certainly seeing the effort that you put in personally, you certainly put in as much work, if not more work, than a lot of these other municipalities, based on the services and the commitment you have to some of the groups and things. So it's there before you. And so really, we're looking for direction. We do have the first reading of the bylaw before you, if you consider it, but it can be amended. But whether you want to just defeat the bylaw and just stay where you're at, you can follow our recommendations at the minimum. You could phase it in over multiple years. If you maybe want to do half of the difference to year 1, half difference to year 2. It's just not even a thought, just another option. Or anything in between. You can pay yourself 10 times more or do it all for free. I guess whatever you folks want to do, but I'm open to whatever way you want to go. And that, like I said, staff have just put it up there for your consideration. But there is a proposed meeting of objections on December 12th. That's also before you. That certainly we want to hear from the community. And we can make some information available on our website so they can see what we're suggesting and how we came up with the numbers. And then they can either come in or make submissions on how you feel it goes. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spear. So appreciate that detailed report for council. I'll open it up for some discussion. I guess before we do, though, I'll say that it is unfortunate. I thought that there was a real opportunity through municipal reform. There was a lot of processes that were one Band-Aid fits all type solution. And I really think this is one that the province could have done. They could have taken a leadership role, gone through every particular municipality, and based on what appears to be the system that everyone's using, say this is what it's going to be. But they did it for 90%, it seems, in the province, and the rest of the 10% now are significantly less than the other 90%. There's no question that more services are being downloaded to municipal governments, through the Regional Service Commission, but also some things that we're talking around in this table. But, it's never good when you have the opportunity to adjust your own compensation. I really think the province missed the ball in this one, but it's definitely worth your debate. If you look at the numbers, you're half of what St. Stephen and St. George and Blacks Harbor are around you. A councillor in St. George Blacks Harbor makes more than the mayor of this community. So I think it was something worthwhile for staff to certainly bring forward. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And I appreciate the fact that they gave us a starting point with this document, because this, when you do look at it, does appear to be what all the other municipalities in the province are in fact using now. So the question is what is the right amount and how to proceed. I will say that from experience, I would say you're better to do it once and move on than every single year go through it. And, you know, I think it's better to say, get yourself lined where you think you should be and then move on than it is, let's add more next year, let's add more, because then you're always just going through this process. So over to you, council, for some of your thoughts on the presentation for Mr. Spear. And of course, the background of the motions is here. If I go to first reading, I'll certainly put some context more around it. So council, over to you. Any thoughts? Councilor Heaton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I seem to be always the first one out of the gate, but it is a difficult job to talk about giving ourselves more compensation at a time when everything is going up in price. So I understand that completely. As far as the comparatives, I'm quite surprised at the comparatives. I believe that the mayor of this municipality does more than a lot of mayors. I personally feel that this council works very hard. And I know that I work hard. I mean, if you figured out per hour, you know, we're probably not even making minimum wage. So I would like to see us come in line, shall I say, but I would never go to the top of the estimated. Like, if we were going to move anywhere, I would recommend we take the lower range of all the scales. That's just my thought, because we didn't do this to become rich. We didn't do this to become financially well off, but it would be nice if we as a municipality could be in the same room with people that make pretty near the same amount of money for the size of our municipality. And I just feel that the bump up would be fine, but the minimum bump up. And that's all I'd like to say, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Heaton. Anyone else like to add? Okay. Oh, Councilor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. Agree with Councilor Heenan's comments that it's a difficult discussion to have, and something always a little bit, in my mind, distasteful to be talking about remuneration for myself. But Mr. Spear, in your presentation, you mentioned that some municipalities have rejected this format. Do you have any information as to why, or the reasons behind why it was rejected for some municipalities?
I really can't. We weren't privileged to the conversations. Some of them were relatively small. And so realizing that, you know, we have a healthy assessment base, but if you had something only at 20% of ours, they might have not been willing to increase their tax rate, that they'd rather have a savings for the community and frankly themselves than take it through compensation is all I can guess, but they tended to be smaller villages and communities.
Thank you. And it's the only thing that I would add to that is just looking around the room. If I take myself out of the equation and not think about, remuneration for myself, but I look at fair pay for the work that my colleagues are doing. And I think, should Councillor Blanchard be paid fairly for his time? Should Deputy Mayor Akaji be paid fairly for her time? And I have to say, yeah, absolutely, they do. Seeing the amount of tremendous, that's not an exhaustive list, by the way, everybody. But just seeing the tremendous amount of work that goes into what you do and the care and compassion that you put into the work that I see daily, I think it would only be fair.
Thank you, Councilor Heaton. Any other member? Deputy Mayor Akaji.
This is a hard topic for us. In the last two councils that I've been on, we've refused to take the raise. So, but seeing that, we're getting bigger and bigger as a community, that I'm with Councillor Heenan, that we take the lower amount. I wouldn't want to see us go to the higher amount, but I'd at least like to see some of it, come back to the people that are working so hard, like our counselors are doing. So with that being said, I'm for the raise. It probably won't work out to be more than pennies, but it's at least something, to help out in it, as you say, or as Mr. Spears said, that maybe we'll get some new people because, they'll understand that they're getting a little bit more money, even though we're low man on totem pole.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I guess to drill down on the point is this council currently is making about 40% what St. Stephen and Eastern Charlotte will get. So we're significantly under at this point. So I'm hearing, again, if there's anyone else who wants to add on, I'm hearing we want to do something. I'm hearing the lowest end of the spectrum possible. Question is, we have the ability to just say, we understand this is the lower. Do we want to go lower than that? Do you want to say 90% of that, 80% of that? Like, you know what I mean? It does give us some flexibility to not only be on the low end of the spectrum that everyone's using, but we could kind of show some leadership and take even less than what the lowest it is. So it's completely flexible to kind of your preference. But what I'm hearing is through the budget that should be passed by the province of New Brunswick for the town of St. Andrews, you have anticipated that this formula would be adopted. Is that the anticipation? Because you had to prepare something.
Yeah, without council having a chance to talk about it, I put something into at least if you wanted to compensate whomever, if you wanted to come up with a formula in the future that you had that availability.
Okay, thank you for that. That makes it a little easier conversation. So council, anyone else want to weigh in? Oh, Councilor Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just sort of on your last point there, I think the fact that the formula does exist and a number of other municipalities across the province have adopted that, I don't have any issue with utilizing that. Again, as previous councilors had mentioned, at the low end of that scale. I think, like you said, when the town of St. Stephen, councillors there, and mayor and deputy mayor, and Fundy and communities all around us are significantly higher, I think we undervalue the work that this council does by not at least coming in line with everyone else. So I would be supportive of the low end and utilizing that scale to determine that.
Thank you, Councilor Blanchard. Anyone else? Yeah, Councilor Neal. Then we've done everybody, right?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I thank staff for the presentation there again. And I think just to be brief, I would support again the low end of that scale. Honestly, myself, again, it is a difficult conversation, but I would like to see us go to first reading simply so we can get it to that next phase, which is basically putting it before the people that we do work for. So we get it to that public hearing of objections and hear what they have to say.
Okay, perfect. All right. If everyone's had a chance to weigh in, I think at this point, I guess I'll call the question unless someone has any last minute. I know Councilor Gumshell is now online as well, just so everyone's aware. See you. Welcome back. All right. Councilor Gumshell, you're good if I call the question?
All good. Thank you, Worship. Nothing new to add to the excellent discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. There's two of you now on the screen. Okay. Our council is getting
I'll
bigger.
just vote once. Thanks.
All right. I'll call the question then. All in favor of going to first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everybody. So I will do first reading. This is bylaw number 22-07, a bylaw relating to the town of St. Andrews Council remuneration. And I normally read it by title, but if you guys don't mind, I'm going to read this whole thing, even though I have a cold, just to get out the information to the public. So being enacted by the council of the town of St. Andrews under the authority vested in it under section of the Local Governance Act, RSNB 2017. I guess C18 as follows. One definition, 1.1 in this bylaw, 1.1.1 remuneration means an amount of money paid to the mayor, deputy mayor, council. And the other definition is 1.1.2. The councillor means a member of the council of the town of St. Andrews who is not the mayor or deputy mayor. So 2, remuneration of council. 2.1, the mayor shall be paid an annual salary of $34,400 to the discharge of the duties of the mayor, the amount being payable in equal monthly installments. 2.2, the deputy mayor shall be paid an annual salary of $14,700 to the discharge of the duties of the deputy mayor, the amounts being payable in equal monthly installments. 2.3 is each councillor shall be paid an annual salary of $13,100 to discharge of the duties of councillor, the amounts being payable in equal monthly installments. 2.4, on the first day of January 2023 should be. And on the first day of January in each and every year thereafter, the salary set out in section 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 shall be adjusted by an equal to the average increase in the consumer price index for New Brunswick recorded for the immediately preceding calendar year. 2.5, the first pay to be calculated will be on January 1st, 2023. Each adjustment as per section 2.4 will be on January 1st of each year, each preceding year. 2.6, there's $50 per hour to a maximum of $75 per occurrence will be provided for care, oversight, coverage incurred by a council member while attending a town of St. Andrews official function. A receipt is required for reimbursement. That is not new. Number 3 is repeal and effective date. 3.1 bylaw number 18-04, a bylaw related to the council. Remuneration is hereby repealed. And 3.2, a bylaw number 22-07, a bylaw relating to the town of St. Andrews council. Remuneration shall come into force in effect upon receiving the third and final reading to be signed. And this has been read the first time on the 21st day of November 2022. And council, I won't read that every time, but I just wanted to get that out there for public information.
Sorry, just one point.
Absolutely.
On 2.4, I do believe it's supposed to say 2024 because the change itself would come into play in 2023 and then the CPI would take into play.
Oh, that's
into
for the
effect.
CPI. Okay, so
2023.
friendly adjustment, I read 2023 under 2.4 or yeah, I said 2023. It is in fact 2024. So thank you for that. See why it caught my eye though, didn't you? Thank you for that. All right, that takes care of that one. So we'll move along in the agenda, and that was we got the
Second
follow-up
motion.
motion to that.
Deputy Mayor, sorry, before you start, we just realized it should actually be bylaw 22-07. So when you read the next motion about the meeting of objections, can you just make that 2207?
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Spear. So the motion that council sets the date of Monday, December the 12th, 2022 at 6:30 PM for a public hearing of objections to bylaw number 20-07, a bylaw relating to the town of St. Andrews Council I don't know, I have trouble with that, remuneration. And I so move, your worship.
Seconder, please. Counselor Neal. Discussion on that one. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's everybody. That has been carried. Okay, so we're on to Public Works. Counselor Blanchard.
Thank you, your worship. So reference number PED 22, I'm gonna make this bigger so I can read it without taking my glasses off. 221113, subject Market Square and Market Wharf project scope amendment. The background on this is at the November 14th, 2022 special council meeting. Staff updated council on the Market Square and Market Wharf project and funding constraints. From the discussion, the council selected an option to complete repairs and upgrades for the climate change adaptation to the Market Square and complete repairs to the wharf pier and piles with steel wrappings. The council directed staff to reapply for funding for the wharf approach. The council also supported a safety inspection review to be completed on the wharf to determine the current condition. Staff now have to approach the funding partners for a scope amendment to the Market Square and Market Wharf project. In order to be official, a council motion is needed to start the process. So the motion is that council approves a scope amendment to the Regional Development Corporation of the Province of New Brunswick for the Market Square and Market Wharf project to include Market Square repairs and upgrades based on climate change adaptation and repairs to the Market Wharf pier and piles with steel wrappings, and I so move.
Seconder for that motion. I've got Counselor Heenan. Discussion on that one. We talked at length before, so I will call the question then. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is everybody. That has been approved. We are now on to the next one.
Second motion is that council approves a safety inspection review to be completed on the Market Wharf to determine the current conditions, and I so move.
Seconder for that one. I've got very quickly Deputy Mayor Akaji. And any discussion on that one? Check the TV as well. Seeing none. Call the question. All in favor of this motion?
Aye.
That's everybody. That one has been carried as well. And that takes Counselor Blanchard through hers. And we're moving on to, I believe, Counselor Hurdle.
Thank you, worship. This is in reference to BTHC 221004. The subject is bylaw 22-05, a bylaw of the town of St. Andrews to impose a special business improvement levy, third and final reading. And the background is, as part of downtown beautification initiatives, the St. Andrews Business Improvement Area collects an annual levy from its members to pay for various projects and events. The BIA, established in 1984, is a geographical area between Water Street from Princess Royal Street to Elizabeth Street. All businesses within this area are within the BIA and subject to the annual levy. As per the Business Improvement Act of New Brunswick, council must set the levy annually by bylaw, which also includes approval of their budget and public hearing of objections. The first reading was on October 3rd, 2022. The public hearing of objections was November 7, 2022, and the second reading, November 7th, 2022. And this will be the third and final reading today. As per the BIA Act, the bylaw, as per the BIA Act, the bylaw and budget have been posted in the St. Croix Courier for 2 consecutive weeks, October 17 and October 24. In addition to the public hearing of objections, there were no objections submitted on this bylaw. The motion before us is that council grants leave for third and final reading of bylaw 22-05, a bylaw of the town of St. Andrews to impose a special business improvement levy for 2023 in the town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you. A seconder. Counselor Blanchard won that one. Any discussion on this one? The 5th straight year, I don't think we had to hear anyone weigh in actually. So I'll call the question. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. It's everybody. So here we go. This is Town of St. Andrews bylaw number 22-05, a bylaw of the Town of St. Andrews to impose a special business improvement levy pursuant to section 5.1 of the Business Improvement Areas Act, RSNB 2014. Being enacted by the council, the Town of St. Andrews as follows. Number 1, that a special business improvement tax shall be levied for the calendar year 2023 on all non-residential properties within the business improvement area of the town. Said area having been designated the Town of St. Andrews bylaw number 72 enacted on June 4th, 1984. Number 2 is that the special business improvement tax for the calendar year 2023 shall be at a rate of 20 cents on each $100 assessment of real property being the non-residential property in the business improvement area. Read the first time, the 3rd day of October 2022. Read the second time on the 7th day of November 2022. The public hearing of objections was the 7th day of November of 2022, and it's been read the 3rd and final time here, the 21st day of November 2022. And we are on to the next motion, which we'll be jumping over, I believe.
I do have one.
Oh, you do have one more,
I do
yeah?
have one more that
Oh,
was
you have
added.
double, yeah.
I do. Big night for me.
Yeah.
This one wasn't, is sort of separate from the original package in case everybody doesn't have it.
Thank you.
This is in reference to BTHC 221103. And the subject is 108 Sophia Street request for Airbnb and long-term rental. The town of St. Andrews has received a request from Krista McAllister, owner of the 108 Sophia Street, regarding the conversion of the old dental suite in the veterinary clinic into a long-term rental and Airbnb. Please see the attached letter from Krista McAllister outlining their request and intended uses for student rental and Airbnb. With the sale of 108 Sophia Street, there were terms and conditions that were applied. Please see the attached document for a copy of the council resolution containing the terms and conditions. The second term and condition outline the following: that any future use must be similar to or compatible with the veterinary clinic and the surrounding residential neighborhood in the opinion of council. Based on the terms and conditions, it is up to council to determine if this type of request for the building can be allowed. Council can support the request or not support the request for 108 Sophia Street. The motion before us is that the council either supports or does not support the, yes, true. Yeah, okay, supports. The council supports the development of a long-term rental and Airbnb at 108 Sophia Street by Krista McAllister based on the council resolution of April 2021.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Councilor Hurdle. We'll bring a seconder, then we'll talk about that a little further. Deputy Mayor seconded that. So again, that is to accept this. So this particular time, there is a staff report that kind of states that it would be, looks like a long-term rental during the school year and Airbnb in the summer. Is Andrews going to actually, is that correct, Mr. Doffer? Or yeah, does he want to speak to it? Perfect.
Thank you, Your Worship. The only thing I wanted to add to this is I'm seeing my face on the screen. This is horrifying. Let me just I don't know if somebody fixed it for me. I don't know what happened. No, I just wanted to add, if there's obviously a condition that you do need to make a decision on. If this was just a regular request for such a use in that zone, they're in the mixed use zone, it would be an allowed secondary use, long-term rental and or short-term rental. And it is also an allowed use, secondary use in the serviced residential zone, which is predominantly the zone around it. So if it just came forward to us for a development permit for a change in use, we would approve it. But obviously it does require your support because of that condition. So that's all I wanted to add.
The mayor's gone. Thank you, Council, Mr. Alexander, Mr. Gopin, sorry. Anyway, the mayor will be back in a few seconds, but he just stepped out. Council, what is your response, right? We kept going even though.
Oh, please do.
I was inferring, your worship, that the planner is recommending that we grant this variance. Two of me now too.
Yes, that's correct. The mayor just stepped back, so yes, that's correct.
You want me to hurry? You want to? Okay, sounds good. Counselor Hurdle, sorry, I can breathe a lot easier now.
Thank you, your worship. just a point of clarity, actually, because it looks like what I understood was there were two units. One was going to be long-term rental and one was going to be short-term rental, but it looks like both of the units will be both long-term and short-term. Do we know?
Through your worship, my understanding is that when I spoke with the proponents, that they were looking at both long and short term. So their goal is to provide student housing from like September through May, and then looking at Airbnb it from there. But they've also said that it can also be used as like for their practicum students or veterinary staff or somebody that they're coming in to train. So it does give them an opportunity to be able to retain staff as well if they saw an opportunity for it.
Correct. Counselor Heenan.
I just have one question, your worship, is there parking in the back for people to park for this use? Because as you know, our lot across the street is ours that they use all the time. And so my issue is, were they planning to use that park lot across the street for parking, or do they have parking out back to accommodate like 3 cars? Thank you.
Councillor Heenan, council gave us permission back in the spring to negotiate for a lease on that lot that's across from them. So, they're responsible for everything, so I can't answer exactly where they'll go. I'm assuming it's the old dental units. So there's parking there anyway for 2 or 3 cars. So it appears to me they have adequate. I guess I'm not sure, Xander, if they meet the need of a 1 1/4 spaces with that.
Yeah, a dwelling unit, an apartment dwelling unit would be 1 1/4 spaces, 1.5 spaces. No, 1 1/4.
So we'll confirm that, but they do have that lot across that they can use and under agreement with council. Yeah.
Ensure that we had that parking lot issue solved, that they were leasing it or whatever before we went along any further. Thank you very much, Mr. Spear.
Thank you, Counselor Heenan. Anyone else? Counselor Hurdle.
Thank you. I guess just a procedural question. Since what they're asking for is the use for it to be long-term or short-term rental, would that take the form of an amended resolution? Or how would that look in actual when it's resolved, I suppose?
Well, your worship, the request it's back on your opinion. So the motion would be either to support or not support the request. And that's really all it comes down to for, although the last council put a council resolution for terms and conditions, a motion by council is fine for approving upon that term and condition through the resolution.
So I guess if I just follow the thought a little further, and this is again is maybe in the weeds a little bit, but if the building were to be sold, would it maintain a requirement to be a short-term and long-term rental, or could that then change depending on who the new owners are?
Well, through you, your worship, there's no real regulation on whether you have to be short-term or long-term. We just have the tourism accommodation levy if you are operating a short-term rental below 30 days. So if they wanted to convert it to pure long-term rental, there's nothing that would limit them from that as well.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
I do know that they're suggesting that, like when they take their vacation or whatever, that the vet in the interim would stay there as well. So that's what they would use it as well. Part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, again, the motion was to accept. We've got a mover and a seconder, so I'll call the question. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is everybody. This motion has been carried. And now you're done, right, Counselor Hurdle? Big night for you. So we're going to move on at this point to Counselor Gumashell.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, I'm not there with you in person. Reference number RCS 221107 dated November 16th, submitted by myself, and the subject is amendment to terms of reference for the Trail Advisory Committee for the Town of St. Andrews. So a bit of housekeeping here. The background reads, on November 7th, 2022, at the regular council meeting, council approved the terms of reference for the Trail Advisory Committee for the Town of St. Andrews. Council appointed 2 members of council to the committee. As such, the terms of reference need to be amended to reflect the new composition of the committee with the following changes. Number 1, terms of composition, all 8 members will be appointed and removed by council. And number 2, there are 2 council members. So the motion reads that council accepts the following amendments to the terms of reference for the Trail Advisory Committee for the Town of St. Andrews. Number 1, terms of composition, all 8 members will be appointed and removed by the council. And number 2, there are 2 council members, and I'd like to make that motion. And there's 2 of me. Well, not anymore. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Counselor Gumashell. So a seconder for that motion, Counselor Heenan, as stated, this is almost housekeeping from the previous meeting with the changes, but just want to make sure. Anyone? Okay, I will call a question then. All in favor of this one, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That has been carried as well. So thank you very much, Counselor Gumashell. And we're now at this point switching over to, I believe, Counselor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council and Xander. It's reference number PED 221007, amendment MP 20-02-02 to the secondary municipal plan, MP 20-02 for PID 152-10289, the lot on Carleton Street for Mary Truemner. Second and third reading. The town of St. Andrews has received an application for an amendment to the secondary plan for PID 152-10289, a lot on Carleton Street between Elizabeth Street and Edward Street for Mary Truemner. The applicant is seeking to construct a 30 by 40-foot 2-story Cape Cod single dwelling unit. Due to the size of the lot and the massing and the scale, an amendment would be required to the secondary municipal plan to allow the build lot. Required to complete the amendment process. Public presentation was done on October 17th, 2022. First reading was done on October 17th, 2022. Public hearing of objections, November 14th, 2022. Obtained views of the Planning Advisory Committee, which was done on November the 16th. Second reading and third reading. There were no objections submitted to the town for this proposed residential development. And the first motion is that council grants leave for the second reading to the amendment MP 20-02-02 to the town of St. Andrews secondary municipal plan MP 20-02 for PID 152-10289 Mary Truemner to be exempt from any policy or proposal in the secondary municipal plan MP 20-02. And your worship, I so move.
Thank you very much, Counselor Heenan. Seconder, Deputy Mayor Akaji. Discussion on this before we go to second reading. Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Does this include like the PAC recommended that? PAC recommended that it be moved, in line with the others in the street. Is that including this?
I
In the
did
motion?
ask earlier, but I'll pass it over to, I think, would be Mr. Knopper.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So it was the opinion of PAC. So they put forward a potential recommendation that the owner look at moving the building forward a bit to come more in line with the streetscape. However, based on the slope of the land, based on a large maple tree that's in the front yard, there's only one real building space on it, and it's at the back of the property. Now, the majority of PAC was in support of just building on that location. It was suggested she might want to look at moving it forward to give herself a little bit more of a backyard, but beyond that, that was more of where the recommendation came from.
And it was also recommended to save the tree.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Knopper.
Perfect. That's a good point, though, Deputy Mayor. Any other items? Okay, I'll call a question. All in favor of going to second reading?
Aye, your worship.
That's everybody. So that has been carried. This is bylaw.
Your
number-
worship, you just have to read it by title for the next two. You read it in full the first time.
Perfect. So this is bylaw number MP 20-02-02. Bylaw to amend the bylaw number MP 20-02 being the secondary municipal plan bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. Am I done? That was easy. Read this the second time, the 21st day of November. So we're going to the next motion.
Thank you, worship and council. Motion that council grants leave for the third and final reading to amendment MP 20-02-02 to the town of St. Andrews secondary municipal plan MP 20-02 for PID 1521028 Mary Truemner to be exempt from any policy or proposal in the secondary municipal plan of MP 20-02. I so move, your worship.
Thank you. Seconder for that one. Got Counselor Neal on that one. And once again, discussion. Deputy Mayor Akerchie, same question.
No, just to thank her for saving the maple tree and, bringing her motions forward. Thank you very much and welcome to St. Andrews.
Perfect. Thank you. And I know that she is online listening right now through Zoom, I believe. So those comments are likely heard. So anyone else? Okay, let's call the question. All in favor of going to the third and final reading, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. So the third and final reading is once again bylaw number MP 20-02-02, a bylaw to amend bylaw number MP 20-02 being the secondary municipal plan bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. And now it's been read for the third time on the 21st day of November. So thank you for that one, council. At this time, I will declare my conflict of interest. So I'll just give me a minute to recuse myself and I'll pass it over to Deputy Mayor Akerchie. Thanks so much.
Thank you, your worship. And Counselor Heenan.
Thank you, worship Deputy Mayor and Council. It's PED 22-0611. Amendment MP 20-06 to Municipal Plan MP 20-01 PID 0132551, 302 Mowat Drive, Compass Housing Incorporated, the second reading. The town of St. Andrews received a rezoning request that requires a municipal plan amendment for 302 Mowat Drive. Compass Housing Incorporated at PID 0132551 is seeking a municipal plan amendment to the generalized future land use map to move from commercial designation to residential designation for the purposes of developing a 42-unit apartment complex. The following steps have been completed in the process. Public presentation was on June 20th, 2022. First reading, June 2022. Obtained views of the Planning Advisory Committee, which was July 20th, 2022. Public hearing of objections, July 4th, 2022. Public hearing of objections, October 17th, 2022. This would be the second reading, and then there will be a third reading. And the motion, Deputy Mayor, is that council grants leave for the second reading to the municipal plan amendment MP 20-06 to the town of St. Andrews municipal plan MP 20-01 for Compass Housing Incorporated at PID 0132551 302 Mowat Drive to move from commercial designation to residential designation on the generalized future land use map. I so move.
And we need a seconder, Council. Counselor Hurdle. Any further discussion? And Mr. Spear, do you have any? It's on.
Councillor Hurdle has a question.
Oh, sorry. I thought he was pointing the finger at me. I was gonna say, my microphone's on.
Not this time,
Okay.
not this time. You're off the hook.
Sorry. Sorry, Counselor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just, I guess, to follow up and echo Councillor Blanchard's comments from before. This is a bit of a unique situation, whereas there is, funding that's going into this development. And whether we do it now or on third reading, and while the letter that was sent into us as well as optimistic, everything looks good from that point of view. I'd still like to see renderings of the inside of the building, if we possibly could, before we go too much further.
Through you, Your Worship. So generally speaking, in a rezoning application process, the renderings are the exterior of the building and the site plan of the exterior of the building, not necessarily the interior of the building. The developer has noted that during the processes that'll be tied in with the development agreement, that they have to produce the interior drawings and engineered schematics. From what they mentioned in discussions with us, is that they want to make sure that the schematic is accurate before releasing it to the public. So when it does get released to the public, everybody is aware of exactly how everything is placed. That is why they provided you with the background information that you have now, but they would all be still tied in with the development agreement as well as with their building permit application, that they have to have those, and they're willing to come back and make a presentation to council.
Perfect. Thank you. I just want to make sure we're being as transparent as possible.
And just to follow up a little bit, just so you understand, the development agreement will have to be prepared before third reading is our legal advice. And so that won't be coming real quick, but be early in the new year. And as part of that, as the clerk mentioned, is that staff and or council has to give approval to various components, engineered drawings and things like that. So there's still ample time for you to review things if you wish. Sometimes it's left in staff's hands, but again, as mentioned by yourself and Councillor Blanchard in the previous meeting, it's a little bit of a different type of project for us. And so certainly we can involve you as needed or as desired.
Thank you very much. I'm satisfied. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. And so we'll go to the question as to moving it for second reading. If there are no further counsel. Okay, all those in favor for second reading, say aye. So it's carried unanimously. So I read the,
Deputy Mayor, all you have to do is read it by title. So it was
Oh.
read in full for the first reading.
thank you. So it's the bylaw number MP 20-07, right? Sorry. A bylaw,
Deputy Mayor, it's bylaw number MP 20-06.
it is 06?
It is
Oh,
06.
sorry. I just replaced it. Thank you. So it's bylaw number MP 20-06. A bylaw to amend a bylaw number MP 20-01 being municipal plan bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. So that's
Deputy Mayor,
it's read
that's
the
all you have
second
to-
time on this day, the 21st day of November. Is that correct? Thank you very much. So we're going to save third reading for the new year. And thank you, Councillor Heenan. And so would you please get the mayor so we can come?
Nope, next
Oh,
one.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Heenan has another one. All right, Councillor Heenan.
Here we go. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. In reference number PED 220612, amendment of Z 22-02 to the Town of St. Andrews zoning bylaw 22-01 for 302 Mowat Drive, second reading. The Town of St. Andrews has received a rezoning request for 302 Mowat Drive, Compass Housing Incorporated at PID 01325521 is seeking a rezoning from tourist commercial zone to multiple residential 2 zone for the purposes of developing a 42-unit apartment complex. The following steps needs to be completed before the rezoning is approved. Public presentation, June 20th, 2022, first reading, June 20th, 2022, obtain views of Planning Advisory Committee, July 20th, 2022, public hearing of objections, July 4th, 2022, public hearing of objections, October 17th, 2022, and it would need, of course, second and third reading. And the motion is that council grants leave for the second reading of the zoning bylaw Z 22-02 to the Town of St. Andrews zoning bylaw Z 22-01 for Compass Housing Incorporated at PID 01325521. 302 Mowat Drive to move from tourist commercial zone to multiple residential 2 zone. I so move. Thank you, Worship.
All those in favor? Aye. And contrary? So that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor, now you have to
Oh,
read it
I
by
know,
title,
I gotta
please.
be, but I gotta turn the page first. Just by title? Thank you. So this is bylaw number Z 22-02, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z 22 0-01 being zoning bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. And this is read the second time, the 21st day of November, 2022. Thank you very much. And somebody get the mayor. Thank you. He's in the ladies' washroom. What were you doing in the ladies' washroom? We finished up, your worship.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for taking over the chair once again. Oh, you do actually. 2 more readings. Okay, so at this particular time, we've gone through the rest of that portfolio. So there's nothing under new business that, sorry. Oh, yeah, by all means. Are they the other ones that were, go ahead.
We have the RFP out for the Champlain housing that's closing December the 5th. And we had a proponent come in late last week saying they just found it and wanted to delay it until February, early February. We said we'd run it by you. We have 6 or 7 people that have already taken it. It's up to you if you want to do it, but I don't know, this late in the game, if you'd want to. My concern would be that if it doesn't close until February, by the time you market and grade it and get into an agreement, you're going to be into 2024, late 2024, before they can get contractors and things in line. So it could delay it by a full year. I just wanted to see what there's only the one that is
Okay.
asked.
We'll get some consensus for you on that. So I guess the concern is it's kind of like a competition. People had a deadline that they had to submit. They probably made plans based on pricing today, on factors on where their workforce is going to be. I just don't know if it's fair when 6 or 7 other people have submitted it to extend it for one, unfortunately, although you'd like to have as many different looks as you possibly can. Council, I'll get some of your perspectives on my original reaction to that, but over to you, Deputy Mayor.
I think we go with the ones that we have. I mean, if we postpone it, it's 2024, then we're delaying it. So I don't want to see it delayed any longer, your worship.
Okay, is anyone contrary minded, I guess, must be the answers. Sounds like, and I will say that just because we have these RFPs, we do not have to accept any. So if we don't see something we like, then at that point we could circle back and say it's a call out and ask whoever that is to resubmit, right?
Your worship, just so you know that the RFP will have been released by December 5th for 60 days.
Yeah.
So it's been 2 months of process.
All right. So no one was contrary minded. So I think the consensus is unfortunately for that individual to stick to the deadline. I think that is the fairest response from council. Another one?
Yeah, another quick one, your worship. So it's just to do with the January meetings by our bylaw. We procedural bylaw that if we are going to have meetings different than the bylaw states, we have to do it by motion of council, which will be our next meeting. So staff doesn't get back till January 3rd, second or third, the Tuesday anyway. So we couldn't get out a normal package for the 9th, which would be our regular, well, actually the 2nd would be our regular meeting for 3rd. So what we're proposing is that on the 9th, we have a register review because you'll have your new counselors by then, and then have our regular meeting on the 16th of January. It delays a little bit, but I think we should be good.
Yeah. We'll likely have to swear in our new counselors as well, correct?
So through you, your worship, the swearing in ceremony has to take place between December 8th and December 31st for the new council entity to take over. for
Sounds like a good night to
January.
do that too then.
No, your worship, we have to
sorry,
actually
between
swear them in
December.
December.
Okay.
Yes.
But we have a meeting scheduled for the 12th for the,
For the public hearing of objections to the council remuneration. So you can do it on that night because everything should be official by elections New Brunswick by then.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So do you need a formal motion or anything to move that or just council
no,
consensus? That's okay?
officially, but we'll bring it forward at the next meeting. We don't
Okay.
have to do it tonight.
Sounds good. All right. All good for new business. Okay. That brings us into question period. Was there anything submitted, Mr. Knopper, throughout the meeting? And while we're waiting online, I believe we just,
Through you, your worship, we received nothing online and it's just CHCO on our.
okay.
attendance
So,
right
and
now.
there was people earlier, but I think that's it now,
That's
correct? Anyone in the audience have any questions for this evening? Get them after, I'm sure. Okay. So if there's no questions, we'll move into councilors and deputy mayor's comments. Anyone like Deputy Mayor Akaji?
Let's count on somebody on council. I'd like to thank CHCO TV for covering. We had a drum workshop on Sunday, and I'd like to thank the three people from Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls, which were Pam and her brother Mike, and Karen, her friend, who taught 24 people how to make drums. So we have 24 drums made. And let's like to thank CHCO TV because they put it out before I even got home. And by the time I got home, my phone never stopped ringing. And the other two workshops are now full. I am taking names if you want, I'm going to call them in the next couple of days. It's just I'm very busy doing some other Indigenous work that I have to do. And so I've kind of put it on the back burner for now, the drumming workshops, but they are both full, and we're doing it February 18th and February 19th, which is a weekend. And I have checked with Pam and she's okay with that. I just want to get all the details together before I call everybody and say, this is when it's going to be. This is the times it's going to be, because I didn't get a chance to check with her because we were fairly busy yesterday making the drums. But by the time we're finished with this, we will have 74 drums in our area, and I hope to see them out on June 21st, which is National Indigenous Day, and on the 30th of September, which is Truth and Reconciliation Day. We also, because they didn't charge us to make the drums, we collected money for the making of the drums and donations, and we gave it to the St. Stephen University. I took it up there today and she was shocked because it was $895. So that went towards our Truth and Reconciliation. And I am going to get a total of what we have given them for the Truth and Reconciliation course, because we've done 2 Truth and Reconciliation days now with the drumming, and we will do 2 more workshops, which the money will again go towards Truth and Reconciliation, and nobody seemed to have a problem with that. And I'd like to thank our staff, especially the arena staff, because they let me in early because Mr. Nopper wasn't here. And they told me that he was a little late. So, and I wanted in the room because I was nervous. This is the first time we had done it. I'd like to thank Mr. Nopper for assisting me in getting this done. CHCO TV for taking pictures, for all the people who participated. And again, the elders that were there, Pam, Mike, and Karen were just fabulous with all of us, because some of us have left beat when they're doing drums. Others caught on and were finished quite quickly. So very proud and very happy and very glad to see that we have 24 drums. We're working on more. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Appreciate the awareness on that. I believe Mr. Nopper made a drum, which is very, very impressive that they're able to teach him some skills like that. So.
Through you, Mr. Worship, or Councilor and Worship, I would recommend any counselor, if you have an opportunity to participate, to definitely do so. It was a worthwhile and rewarding experience, and yeah, just the camaraderie, the education, the learning, it all really encompassed what Truth and Reconciliation is really about. So it was an honor to be a part of it.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
And as soon as our drums dry, we'll bring them in for show and tell.
Sounds good. And if you have another workshop, I'd love to sign up for that. So let me know. Nothing wrong with 4. Come on. All right. Thank you for that. Any other counselor? Counselor Heaton.
Yes, Your Worship. As we are aware, we have new residents who have moved to St. Andrews this year, and I would just like to wish them a very nice Christmas in their new home here in St. Andrews, and I hope that they get to enjoy all the things that St. Andrews has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Counselor Heaton. Anyone else? Okay, I'm good for this evening. So at 7:37 p.m. I'm going to look for a mover that council goes into closed session as per Local Governance Act 68(1)J, which is labor and employment matter, including the negotiation of collective agreements. So we're looking for a mover. Councillor Gumashell, seconded by Councillor Hurdle. All in favor of going to closed session? That's everyone. We'll give a few minutes to shut it down. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight.
I didn't think you
We need a motion to come out of of closed session at 8:40.
Counselor
So
Neal.
Counselor Neal so moved and second by Counselor Hurdle. Sorry, he had his hand up first. So council, all those in favor?
I worship.
Okay, so we are now out of closed session and I will read the motion that we have done. So we received a letter concerning our code of conduct by a citizen, and this is council's motion. Because of concerns expressed by a resident, council will take training on the code of conduct of the town bylaw 22-02 of St. Andrews under section 21.4.5, a requirement to attend training to ensure full understanding of this code of conduct. Could I have a motion, a mover, please?
Mover.
Okay, Counselor Heenan and seconded by Counselor Blanchard. And are you ready for any more discussion before we? Okay, then all those in favor, say aye.
I, your worship.
And contrary minded,
Aye.
one
Nay.
Counselor Michelle. Do you have any statement to put with that, Counselor Michelle, or you just want it noted?
I think nay says it all. Thank you, Deputy
Okay.
Mayor.
And so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, yes. I hope you can read my writing after all that. I keep changing my mind. Okay. So now I need a motion to adjourn our meeting. Oh, Counselor Neal was the first one. And seconded by Counselor Hurdle. No, Counselor Blanchard, sorry. Got Hurdle on the brain. And so we are adjourned. Thank you very much, Council, for staying so late.
Thank you, your worship.
You're welcome.